A Great Argead Saga Alexein. Volume 1, Telesias, The War Dance. Macedonian. A new episode every single day. Episode 28.
Fractured Kingdom of Macedon. Beyond the western border of Macedon, cradled by precipitous mountains, the court of Epirus, home of the Molossians, had transformed into a closed chamber thick with an ominous, vibrating heat. The flickering candlelight illuminated the swollen abdomen of Queen Andromache, her pregnant form draped in the heavy silk folds of a traditional stala. Beside her stood her two daughters, Troas and Polyxena, whose eyes flashed with a sharp preternatural brilliance. Before them, the king, their father, his countenance locked in the severe, cold geometry of absolute sovereignty, stood frozen like a stone monument, clutching a scrap of papyrus that bore the newly arrived report of an assassination. Behind him, submerged in the deepest shadows of the chamber, General Lycomedes, the supreme titan of the Epirote military, loomed in a rigid iron silence. Father, Mother, Polyxena spoke. Her piercing voice sliced through the heavy, stagnant air, carrying an intensity entirely unbefitting her tender years. What is the true meaning of this Loman dispatch? Is it true that Alexander II, the young king of neighboring Macedon, has been so brutally murdered, and that his funeral procession now defiles the capital of Pella with mud? Troas turned a reproving, fearful gaze upon her younger sister, alarmed by the ruthless clarity of her words. Polyxena, how can you speak of such things so irreverently? Mother, King Alexander was so young, and he was on the verge of seeking an alliance with our house. I cannot bear to believe that his precious life has been snuffed out. Who could have committed so monstrous a crime? The king nodded slowly, turning his cold, discerning eyes upon his daughters. Regrettably, it is all true, Troas. And as you say, Polyxena, the bloodline of the Argeads has once more been defiled by internecine slaughter. Barely a year after the passing of the late King Amyntas, the young new king has been robbed of his life by the insidious machinations, nay, by the literal blade, of Ptolemy the regent. Oh, the horror of it, Troas whispered, pressing her hands together as despair constricted her breast. Queen Andromache gently placed a hand over her womb, her voice laced with bitterness as she continued the thought. That nation is perhaps a cursed land, where the throne must perpetually be washed in royal blood. Of his own brother-in-law to pull every string from the deepest recesses of the court. I suspect he is nothing less than a venomous serpent wearing the skin of a man. Polyxena's burning eyes widened with keen intellect as she pressed further. They say Perdiccas, the second son, who is only 17, has been declared the new king. But does he hold any true power? Can a boy of 17 possibly govern barons who are like ravenous wolves? Such a thing is impossible, Troas interjected, though this time she spoke in agreement with her sister. Mother, 17 is scarcely older than a child. It was but a few years ago. He was no different from us. To place a boy king on the throne without an army, or a faction to shield him, is an act of sheer cruelty. Does this mean Ptolemy the Usurper will now rule the realm in all but name? Queen Andromache offered a faint, fleeting smile at her daughter's sharp insights, breaking down the complex architecture of the palace coup into terms they could grasp. Precisely, Troas, Polyxena. In form, Perdiccas is the new king, but his crown is nothing more than an empty crown of thorns. At 17, he possesses neither an army of his own nor the leverage to subjugate the court. Therefore, Ptolemy has assumed the title of regent, transforming the young king into a puppet and absolute instrument to be manipulated at his whim. This is the entire structure behind the birth of this terrifying regency in Macedon. Then the new King Perdiccas is merely an ornament? Polyxena asked instantly, her questioning rapid and precise, like a hunter anticipating the movement of pieces across a game board. If so, why did Ptolemy not slaughter him immediately? Why leave him on the throne? Rather than hide behind the ambiguous title of regent, why not simply crown himself the legitimate king of Macedon? Troas looked at her sister in sudden realization, then turned an apprehensive gaze toward her father. Polyxena is right, father. If Ptolemy is so omnipotent and possessed of an ambition grand enough to steal a kingdom, why not strike off the heads of all the princes and claim the diadem? I do not understand his reason for keeping an ornamental king alive. A deep shadow of calculation crossed the king's eyes. He shook his head slowly. No, my daughters. This assassination of Alexander is but the first move, the opening gambit, and a bloody three-tiered stratagem, by which Ptolemy intends to usurp the throne itself. One must not misjudge the grand scope of his true plot. As the king finished speaking, a sharp metallic rasp echoed from the darkness as General Lycomedes stepped forward, his armor catching the dim light. The king speaks the truth, young princesses. The regent intends to devour the legitimate royal lineage entirely from within. Lycomedes explained further, his voice low but carrying the heavy ring of iron. Ptolemy lacks the sacred blood of the Argeads. The line of Heracles does not run through his veins. Were he to style himself king today, the stubborn barons and soldiers of Macedon would slaughter him as a bloodless usurper. Thus, he first secured his position as the husband to Princess Polyxena, daughter of Queen Mother Eurydice. That was his first foothold. Next, he assassinated the troublesome eldest son Alexander to claim the regency. This is his second foothold, the state he will dispose of the new King Perdiccas whenever the time is ripe. The king tightened his severe countenance, nodding grimly. Exactly, Polyxena. He will use the 17-year-old king as a sacred shield of blood until his own grip on power is absolute. Then, under some convenient pretext, Perdiccas too will be assassinated. Once that is done, Ptolemy, as the husband of Princess Polyxena, who carries the true Argead blood, will claim the legitimate right of inheritance to sit upon the throne. The murder of Alexander was never an isolated crime. It is the grand, cold engine of a three-tiered usurpation designed to bring about his own coronation. Troas shuddered as the full horror of this bloody staircase was laid bare. Yet, as she looked at her mother cradling her unborn child and gazed upon the distorted politics reshaping the horizon, a pure, naive question surfaced in her mind. Father, mother, if neighboring Macedon is destined to destroy itself through the regent's conspiracies, does this not present our own Epirus with a flawless opportunity to seize dominion over the West? General Lycomedes, should we not sharpen the spears of our host and march upon their borders even now? What a foolish thing to suggest, Troas, Polyxena cut in, a cold, mocking smile playing upon her lips. Her eyes burned with a precocious, almost terrifying genius for political foresight, reading the destiny of nations as if it were mere geometry. To watch a neighboring state consume itself in the fires of civil strife and think only that it is a simple time to strike is utterly short-sighted. Mother, the collapse of Macedon as a bulwark would mean the beginning of our own ruin, would it not? Queen Andromache regarded her younger daughter with a mixture of awe and astonishment, before reaching out to press her palms against the cheeks of both girls. While she silently comforted the eldest's earnest loyalty, her voice resonated with the cold reality Polyxena had discerned. Polyxena speaks the truth, Troas. One must never look at statecraft through a single lens. A massive monster anarchy, the ferocious Illyrians of the north will sweep downward, overrun Macedon, and pour directly into our own Epirus. The internal strife of a neighbor is a lethal fire that, if mismanaged, will swallow us whole. Lycomedes, what is your counsel? The veteran commander bowed his head deeply. The queen's assessment is flawless. Macedon serves as a massive breakwater protecting our realm from the northern barbarians. If it shatters, even the heavy hoplites of Melasha will not escape unscathed. For now, the hour demands we merely watch how their court moves. Then what of Philip, the youngest son of King Amyntas? Polyxena pressed, refusing to yield as she leveled an even sharper query. Will this third prince, a boy of only 14 and brother to the new king, also fall prey to the regent's fangs and share the same assassinated fate? No, it is highly improbable that he will, the king replied quietly, his eyes scanning a specific line upon the papyrus. The queen mother Eurydice is not simply sitting idle, waiting for the bloodline of her husband to be extinguished. Rumor has it that she has negotiated with an Athenian general to secure the aid of Thebes. Her intent is to evacuate 14-year-old Philip to the custody of the Theban commanders, placing him there as a political captive, a hostage for his own safety. The youngest son is to be delivered unto Thebes? Troas exclaimed, her eyes wide with disbelief. Father, even if it is to save his life, to surrender one's own child to a foreign power as a prisoner seems a wretched, miserable defeat. What a cruel destiny for such a young boy. No, I would take the exact same course, Queen Andromache interjected, her hand halting upon her womb as her voice rang with absolute resolve. In her eyes lay the profound clarity of a sovereign who carried the weight of a state. Thebes is currently the bird of the rising sun, a titan of a state taking flight with furious momentum toward the hegemony of all Greece. If one wishes to shield the last sun, the solitary star of the Argead house, from the venom of Ptolemy, while simultaneously molding him into a monster capable of fundamentally reconstructing his kingdom, a true general, there is no place on earth better suited than the custody of Epaminondas and Pelopidas, the very commanders who utterly shattered the invincible myth of Sparta. Are we then to remain entirely silent, merely watching this accursed funeral procession pass us by? Polyxena asked, her brow furrowing as she hurled her final, most fundamental question at her father. Father, is the Argead line truly to be severed forever by this three-tiered stratagem of a single usurper? Is there no true hunter left within that house to save their kingdom? The king rose to his feet, staring out into the western night toward the distant horizon of Macedon. His palm remained perfectly still, like a balance scale weighing the destiny of empires. No, Polyxena. And no, Troas. 2 princes still survive within the Argead house. Beneath the young King Perdiccas remains Philip, the youngest at 14. Lycomedes, is the intelligence regarding Pelopidas of Thebes verified? It is, sire, Lycomedes answered firmly. Fearing a unified front among the brothers, the regent Ptolemy is currently finalizing the arrangement to banish 14-year-old Philip to Thebes as a hostage. Pelopidas has not yet arrived in Pella to claim him, but the trap is set. Soon, the boy will be forced to depart the gates of Pella and march down the southern highway. The king paused, turning back to face his daughters, his eyes reflecting a menacing absolute possessing the most formidable military apparatus in all of Greece. When that 14-year-old boy returns, having thoroughly devoured the supreme tactics of Epaminondas, the bloody three-tiered stratagem, engineered by Ptolemy, will be overturned at its very foundation. In its place, a true, blazing sun will rise into the Macedonian sky, incinerating every usurper in its path. Princesses of Epirus, the grand drama of Macedon has only just begun. Like Lycomedes, we must perfectly sharpen the spears of our own host, for the day will surely come when that same blazing sun shines upon our borders.
To be continued. A Great Argead Saga Alexein. Volume 1, Telesias, the War Dance. A new episode every single day. We are dropping a new episode every day until the epic conclusion of Volume 1. Each chapter delivers a tight, hyper-focused 5 to 15-minute hit of cinematic historical drama, perfect for your daily plunge into antiquity. Watch the cinematic video trailer. Listen to the full saga now. Bookmark Volume 1, Telesias playlist. Subscribe to follow the rise of the Argead dynasty. Thumbs up to help push our vanguard through the algorithm's gauntlet. Comment below.